My name is Bert, and this is the Still Life Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Still Life Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Bert. So, most everyone has been in a relationship of some sort. More specifically, a romantic relationship. Whether that's dating or marriage, either way, most of us have been down that path. Now, relationships are never easy. If a relationship is easy, that's usually a bad sign. All relationships take work, good, bad, or indifferent. All relationships take work. And it's very, very important. I mean, if you're in a relationship and the relationship is not good, you're either going to put in work to make it better, or you're going to put in work to end the relationship, and ultimately, you're going to work on a new relationship with a new person. Now, obviously, if you're married, that changes things when you look to get divorced, or if you have children together. That complicates things because you can't just walk away from each other. It just doesn't work that way. And so ending relationships is incredibly muddy, and there is no winner when you end a relationship. In fact, everyone loses. But most times, one person loses more than the other. And now I can sit on here and talk about how it's always the other party's fault. Regardless of who you are, who's listening, it's not your fault, it's somebody else's. And I could say the same thing about my 2 failed marriages. Oh, they weren't my fault. But here's the thing, at the end of the day, you are responsible for 50% of any relationship. And while you might not be completely at fault, you are responsible for 50% of that relationship being successful or that relationship ultimately failing. And that's something that we just have to accept. We are not always innocent. And I'm going to tell you right now, going through my second divorce, no more enjoyable or fun than going through my first one. Still freaking sucks. Divorce sucks. Bottom line. There's no winners, everybody loses, and it's just freaking miserable. It's expensive. It's time-consuming, it's physically and emotionally draining, and it just freaking sucks. And again, my point isn't to sit on here and bash my former partner and say, oh, well, she was a terrible person and did all these terrible things. Again, she was responsible for 50% of our relationship, and I was responsible for the other 50%. So I'm not free and clear in any of this either. Now, we also have 2 kids together, which makes things more complicated because my children, I will tell you this, my children will never see me be disrespectful to their mother. Ever. It will not happen. Because at the end of the day, that hurts my children and it affects my relationship with my children negatively. Regardless of the way she acts, what she says or what she does, doesn't freaking matter. I can only control me, and that's what I have to control. And so I will bite my tongue. I will keep my comments to myself, and I will stay cool, calm, and level-headed so that my children don't grow up having to witness that poor relationship. Now, it's not always that way. It has its moments. There are times when we get along, and I will always do my best to get along for the sake of my children. But make no mistake, we will never be best friends. And as far as I'm concerned, we probably will never be friends in any capacity. That's just not possible. But I will be polite. I will be respectful. But it is a business transaction at this point. We're no longer in a relationship. The relationship has ended. We have gone our separate ways. It is a business relationship centered on my children. I will discuss only what we need to discuss. I don't make small talk. I don't crack jokes. Because it doesn't matter. I don't want any kind of relationship with my former partner. And hey, there's people that get divorced, they're still best friends. Good on them. That ain't me. I ain't wired for that. Okay, and I know a lot of people aren't. And so my relationship went from dating to marriage, now to divorce, and it becomes a business relationship. I try to take out all feeling and emotion, which is extremely difficult sometimes, and just focus on business. But how do we do that? How do we shut off emotion when we've spent, several years with someone as our partner, as our best friend, as our confidant that, we think knows us inside and out? How do we turn those emotions off? Well, I want to tell you, you don't. It takes time. and the emotions just kind of decrease over time. For some people, it may be a period of months. For others, it may be a period of years, because we go through a process of grieving and loss, and then we start to heal. But the healing isn't just the dynamic of the relationship evolving and changing. The healing has to be through personal growth. I can blame my ex for all of our relationship problems, marriage problems, and divorce problems. But again, I'm 50% half responsible for all of these things. And so if I'm not working on improving and growing myself, I'm never going to heal. But here's the kicker. Healing and growth, it ain't fun, and it ain't pretty either. So you got to get dirty, you got to dig down in the mud, and you got to freaking dig deep and grow. You got to learn about yourself. You got to learn what you've done well, what you've done poorly, work to improve, work to grow, and work to not make the same mistakes again. Me, I'm really trusting. I'm a sucker for relationships. I always do better when I'm in a relationship. At least I feel, health-wise, like mentally, I feel like I do better when I'm in a relationship. I've always been a relationship-minded person. I've never really been one just for casual dating, and I certainly could never date more than one person at a time. I'm just not wired that way. I am a very, I don't want to say romantic person, but I'm very, I enjoy sharing life with somebody. I enjoy having a partner to share life with. And so it's led me to have relationships versus, long relationships versus shorter, kind of more casual dating relationships. Again, that's just how I am. That's me. Not everybody's that way, and I understand that. And for me to try and take somebody that's used to something else and to kind of force them to do what I want, it's usually not going to end well, because we're both on a different page. We're both used to different types of relationships. And the same thing goes for, our love languages. My love languages are quality time and physical touch. Those are two very, very important things to me. And, I may have a partner who is, we might have one similar. It could be quality time, but then they may be words of affirmation or, gifts. And so I have to learn how to speak someone else's language. And that's extremely difficult. Look, I'm fluent in my own language, and I expect everyone else to be, just because that's what I know and that's what I'm used to. But unfortunately, that's not the case, and vice versa. I can't be fluent in somebody else's language, unless I try to learn and try to grow to learn how to speak their language or communicate in their language, and I'm fulfilling them how they need to be fulfilled. So it's a two-way street. It is a give and take. Not only, do I have expectations for what I need to receive from my partner, but I need to make sure that I'm meeting my partner's expectations on what they're wanting and needing to receive from me. And so as I move forward with this, and as I work through the emotions and work through all the crap and all my faults and everything else, I've come to realize that I have to invest the time in myself to get myself mentally, physically, emotionally healthy. And in addition to that, I have to learn how to communicate with my partner in a way that they understand. I have to learn to speak a different language that I don't know. And that's where a lot of times we fail in relationships. We might be really good at it up front, but then over time, we kind of let go of things, let things slide, and we start to get lazy, and we go back to our old habits and speaking our native tongue, and then it's back to this communication barrier, and you've gone from being a successful, happy, healthy partnership to you're at odds with each other. And so if you're not continuing to grow and continuing to make yourself fluent in your partner's language, as well as helping them become fluent in your language, you just can't have a successful relationship, and certainly not a happy and healthy one. So when it comes to relationships, remember, take responsibility for your half. Own it, Put in the work on yourself, put in the work with your partner, communicate, learn their language, ask questions, and most of all, have mercy on yourself and your partner as you navigate and learn these new things. And with that, I'd like to thank you for joining me today on the Still Life Podcast. As always, for questions, comments, topic ideas, suggestions, or to become a sponsor of the Still Life Podcast, you can reach us, thestilllifepodcast@gmail.com. That's thestilllifepodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again for joining me today on the Still Life Podcast. We'll talk again soon.